Hello, hello, hello! Isang makakalikasang gabi, isang maalab na pagpati mula sa inyong kaugnay, kapusod at karugtong. Sa ating mga katutubo, isang pagkilala at parangal sa inyong patuloy na pagpapanatili ng balanse, dignidad at integridad ng kalikasan. Dito sa hashtag #QTEarth, everything matters. Dahil ang lahat ay magkaugnay, hindi magkakahiwalay. Dahil ang ating buhay, kalikasan, ang pinagmulan at pinagkukunan ng ating kabuhayan. Tayo at ang kapaligiran ay iisa. Tayo ay kalikasan. Pero una-unahin po natin dahil tayo ay nasa Current Talk Media brought by IKOT.PH. Meron po muna tayong update tungkol sa COVID-19 pandemic dito sa ating bansa. Wow! Ano kaya ang latest na datos ng Department of Health tungkol sa COVID-19 pandemic? So, brought to you by Current Talk Media, COVID-19 cases in the Philippines as of today, on November 18, 2020, ang total cases po natin na active ay 29,474. Ngunit dahil may dagdag na 1,383 cases, total cases na po natin ay 412,097. That's cumulative, no? Lahat total. But nakikiramay po tayo at syempre deepest sympathies, condolences sa mga naiwan ng 95 reported deaths natin. Ang total death, yung mga namatay, 7,957. At ang total recoveries natin, dumagdag ng 143, ngayon ay 374,666. Yan po yung ating update for today, brought to you by, of course, data from, of course, Department of Health. At ngayon po, syempre sa hashtag #QTEarth, hashtag #WeAreNature, ano ang ating nararamdaman? Ano ang kanyang tinitibok? Ang tinitibok ng ating Nanay Earth dito sa hashtag EarthBeats. Ako? May nagtanong sa akin na isang journalist. Ito yung tanong niya. Sabi niya, even if us Filipinos are known for being religious and for seeking courage from God, would you say there's a sentiment now to go beyond just getting succor or relief from God and to demand accountability and better leadership from government officials instead? So ito po yung sagot natin, no? As the Executive Director of Living Datos sa Philippines. And of course, dahil nga nasa Action Team Pilipinas din tayo, ito yung ating sagot. Sabi ko, unang-una, this is both true and untrue. So first, true. Because Filipinos have lakas ng loob, no? Matinding paniniwala at tiwala. But these traits have been abused gravely by the powers that be, leading to patronage politics and blind obedience. The fear to dissent is a result of nalalagay ako sa alanganin, that in the future, they will not get the help or assistance they need until their ability and capacities to face maladies and hazards are reduced. And out of the true God, they are forced to believe and trust in little gods, their make-believe idols. Second, untrue, because genuine Filipino spirituality is a spirituality of communion and action. There is always sharing. Kumaga, meron tayong pabaon, meron tayong pabalot, meron tayong pasalubong. Our sense of belongingness and camaraderie, you have the pakikisama at yung deeper na pakikipagkapwa-tao. When our communities are suffering, the Philippine Church, the civil society, together with other faith groups and organizations, these institutions, these people, these groups have been always there to extend their loving arms to any sector of the society, whatever faith tradition or religion, to every human being. No discrimination. We have witnessed how our churches and organizations, the civil society, open their doors to everyone. And that indeed, we heed and listen to both the cry of the poor and the cry of the earth. Ayan po, no? So that's hashtag EarthBeats. But alam nyo ba, may mga naninindigan, pero maraming tinatakot. Ang iba naman ay nawawala na, pumapanaw, or sometimes being killed. To their last hininga, they fight for Nanay Earth. Makikilala natin sila dito sa hashtag Earth Heroes. Nako, hashtag Earth Heroes. Isa po siyang kaibigan. Tagal ko na kaibigan nito since 2000. 2008, 2006. Siya po si Miguel Mike Magalang. Sino nga ba si Konsehal Mike Magalang? Konsehal siya, no? Kakwento ko to sa inyo kung sino siya, si Kuya Mike. Tawag ko sa kanya ay Kuya Mike. Si Kuya Mike ay taga Marinduque. Ano? Taga Marinduque itong si Kuya Mike. Naalala ko, noong nagkaroon ng, pumunta dito si Al Gore noong March 2016. Isa siya maging mentor. Pero mas naging close ako sa kanya, lalong-lalong pinag-usapan namin ang disaster risk reduction and management at yung climate change since 2005-2006. Siya ay dating executive secretary ng Marinduque Council for Environmental Concerns. Si Kuya Mike, at naging konsehal, ay naging aktibong nagsulong at kumatawan sa Marinduque laban nito sa Mark Copper Mining Corporation. At si Kuya Mike ay nakasama ko sa training, apat kami niyan in 2009 under the Climate Reality Project ni Al Gore. At marami siyang nagawa sa Marinduque actually, yung napakarami ng ordinansang ginawa na isinulong niya noong 2001 to 2004. At syempre, naging konsehal din sa ikawalong sanggunian si Kuya Mike from 2013 to 2016. At marami siyang naging misyon sa ibang bansa din at marami siyang nakausap. At isa siya sa mga haligi ng disaster reduction and management sa ating bansa. So siya po, si Kuya Mike, Konsehal Miguel Magalang ng Boac, Marinduque. Tularin natin siya, si Kuya Mike. Naku! Dito po, si Kuya Mike, tulad ni Kuya Mike, may mga bayaning patuloy na kumikilos para sa bayan ko. Bayan mo, bayan nating lahat. At syempre, upang makilala siya at talakayin ang dalawang line sa bayan ko, nandito po siya. Talakayin ang at sa kanyang yumi at ganda, dayuhan ay, tama ba yun? Nahalina. Mukhang masaya ito. Kaya samahan natin siya sa ating, third episode na ng second season third episode na ba? Yan, ng QT Earth. Dito sa hashtag Earth Talks. Ayun, mga kababayan, mga karugtong, mga kapatid, mga kapusod, please welcome Mr. Dave Albao. Kuya Dave, kamusta?
Kamusta, kapatid? Good evening.
Ayun, ako. Magkakasama naman ulit tayo. Last time, magkasama tayo and we talk about David Attenborough, yung kanyang documentary. Pero syempre, Kuya Dave, yung topic natin sa kain, alam mo, we feature environmentalist. Nung una, yung first season natin, young environmentalist. And right now, last season, we talk about lupang hinirang, yung buong awit na yon, yung thoughts, yung makuha nating aral. Pero ngayon, Bayan Ko naman yung ating tatalakayin. Nung una, we had this, ang Bayan Kong Pilipinas, lupain ng ginto't bulaklak. At syempre, pag-ibig ang sa kanyang palad, nag-alay ng ganda't dilag. At sa kanyang yumi at ganda, dayuhan ay nahalina. Buuin natin yung apat. Dahil last time, nagkaroon tayo ng special episode, hindi natin masyadong na discuss yung pag-ibig ang sa kanyang palad, nag-alay ng ganda't dilag, at sa kanyang yumi at ganda, dayuhan ay nahalina. Kung kakantahin mo to, ano ang nararamdaman mo at ano yung unang pumapasok sa isip mo?
Sa akin, I don't know, sadness. I don't know if it's the correct. It's it's also about attracting our faith. What happens to us. So it's it's sad because it seems like we have taken the end of suffering. I mean, the bad end of suffering. We are suffering more than others, even if, the foreign. I don't know, Rodney. I mean, I really want to try not to be political, but basically, we're being exploited. That's what it means to me. Nakamute ka, kapatid. Nakamute si kapatid. Kapatid, nakamute ka.
Yeah. Okay na. Sorry, sorry. So, maganda na nga yung ating connection. Pero nakamute naman. Pero yun nga, ang tanong ko, the question is, pag-ibig ang sa kanyang palad, nag-alay ng ganda't dilag, at sa kanyang yumi at ganda, dayuhan ay nahalina. Sa palagay mo ha, ano ang isang most relevant issue natin sa Pilipinas na mukhang, o hindi lang mukha, na nakaka-relate, na related dito sa mga taludtod na ito ng bayan ko?
Extraction.
Mm-hmm.
Pagkuha. Pagtanggal. I mean, I don't know the proper words in Filipino, to be honest. Pero sa Ilonggo, siguro we can say pag-agaw.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, of course, extraction means just to get the resources from nature. Pero it's also not just about the materials that's being extracted, but also the spirit of our communities being extracted, being pulled away from our heritage, from our identity as Filipinos. So that to me is what it means. It's happening now, of course. We quarry materials like dolomite, for example,
Mm-hmm.
or denuding watersheds or forests. But I'm not speaking from, kapatid, ayoko ring magsalita na as if hindi ako nagpa-participate dun sa sistema na yon that perpetuates those exploitative extraction systems, because I'm also a consumer. But I think that's what it means to me, that our country is being extracted from, and if you're not vigilant enough, it's gonna continue to happen.
Wow. Okay. One word, and you make a comment. Mahirap to, no? Pero at sa kanyang yumi at ganda, dayuhan ay nahalina. Hindi pala one word, no? Phrase. West Philippine Sea.
Ours.
Ours.
It's ours. It's not anyone else's. It's ours. We need to protect it. It's ours.
Ba't kaya nahahalina yung mga dayuhan sa ating mga karagatan?
Because it's so rich. It's so amazingly rich. It has awesome biodiversity. It provides life, and well, also, if you want to be literal about it, there's a market for sea turtle shells, for example, or giant clam shells, or corals even, or fish. It's and also oil in the underwater. So those are what they want.
Do you think in this situation, in this present time, nako-compromise ba yung pagiging maganda ng Pilipinas, ng ating natural resources sa mga dayuhang gustong kumamkam nito?
Yes.
How do we approach this? Do you think there's a neglect or perhaps a treason-like act ng mga duty bearers?
I am not going to say I have evidence and I have proof. So I'm not going to be irresponsible and just say, what I think it is. But I do have feelings, and I do feel yes, it's happening because it's willful. It's being willed. We're being used as a currency.
Mhm. Nako, sige, mas malalaman pa natin yan mamaya yung mga personal mong nararamdaman dahil meron tayong introduce na mga ginagawa mo. Pero sa iyong mga pagkilos at pakikipag-ugnayan, kilalanin natin ang iyong organization at ano-ano ang inyong mga pinagkakabalahan para kay Nanay Earth dito sa hashtag Earth Moves. So dito, Kuya Dave, kapatid sa hashtag Earth Moves, you're now the executive director of the Philippine Reef and Rainforest Conservation Foundation Incorporated. It's still very, very clear and fresh in my mind that I went to that place na sobrang ganda na sabi ko babalik ako doon at magstay ng longer. So, yes, tell us something about PRRCFI.
I think the story of this foundation is a love story.
Mm.
It's a story about true love. And what is that? True love is truly understanding our connection with the earth and being grateful for the life support that it gives us. I think this is the story behind Bunbugan Island. It's a very small island in Barangay Bolata, the municipality of Kawayan, Negros
Mhm.
Occidental. It's a very small island, but its story is unique, and we hope that there are more places like this. So the idea behind it is that you purchase a piece of land like an island to keep it wild, to just let it be. That's how. It's basically where the work of our foundation revolves around. It's founded by Tito Jerry Ledesma of Negros Occidental and scuba divers in the 90s, although they have been diving in that area since the 70s. And then before the internet, before crowdfunding and all of that kind of digital fundraising, they did a fundraising in the UK and here in the Philippines to be able to purchase this land for conservation. And it's through World Land Trust and with the support of um, uh, financing support by Land Bank, like a loan. First, I think one of the first environmental loans in the Philippines. Um, they were able to secure the island and let it be a wildlife sanctuary. And it's a beautiful story that lasts until to this day. And for for many years, there was also a discussion about how do you sustain work like that. So we believe, I think the foundation believes that experience is the best teacher. We can always talk about how the earth supports our life, how it provides air and water, but if we can't experience it firsthand, di natin ma mafe-feel, mararamdaman ang ganitong katotohanan. So, ito yung aming mission is to provide environmental education program. So, dati, bago ng pandemic, you can book, you can apply for visits to Dinugan Island or participate in its marine and wildlife camps. So, mga programa ito na pwede kang mag-join kahit ikaw lang mag-isa for a tour, pero naka-integrate kasi yung usaping climate change and environmental issues dun sa experience ng nagsa-snorkeling or nagka-trekking. So, hindi lang siya tourism, but it's really an experience that we can learn from. Kahit
Wow.
manood lang ng sunset, isang importanteng aspeto yun ng experience. Manood tayo ng sunset and wake up to the sound of the birds.
Hmm. The Nugan Island. The Nugan Island, this is a model for best practice. This is one of the most um, excellently managed protected area, protected sanctuary, marine sanctuary. Not only marine sanctuary, even the terrestrial, no, terrestrial ecosystem. What is the secret of sustaining this kind of conservation effort that is led by the Philippine Reef and Rainforest Conservation Foundation Incorporated? What is your secret for sustaining
Kapatid,
this effort?
kapatid, pasensya na, pero hindi ko rin masasabi na modelo ang Dominican Island sa protected area management kasi
Mhm.
hindi siya perfecto talaga. It's not without challenges. It's full of so many obstacles and challenges.
Mhm.
Um, chicken and egg situations.
Mhm.
I don't want to be super abstract about this, pero
Mhm.
the very reason that we are ensuring that it's protected, it means there are social issues and issues around it, around the protected area, because you're gonna have you will need to have conversations about resource use and equality of access, diba?
Mhm.
So hindi siya para sa akin, hindi siya yung sikreto na tinatanong mo, we're still trying to crack it. But I think in my feelings, in my heart, um, to sustain a protected area, you need community. You need community for sure. Hindi pwedeng, honestly, hindi pwedeng science lang. Hindi pwedeng
Mhm.
science, hindi pwedeng ethics, hindi pwedeng political correctness. It's not.
Mhm.
It's community. It's community talaga.
So yeah,
Mm-mm.
I agree with you that in every conservation effort, the community is there. The conservationists and even us NGOs, etc. We come and go, but at the end of the day, the community is still there, and the heart of conservation efforts would always be, how we engage and how the community engages also with the conservation effort. So as you said, it's not only about the scientists, it's not only about the technicalities of it, but it is all about the whole society within that protected area, how you involve them, how they participate, and how would that effort ay hindi mako-compromise, especially yung kanilang uh, well-being, at the same time yung livelihood nila. How did you sustain it with the community? What are the challenges, for example, and how were you able to address them?
Uh, I think before the pandemic, the idea was that we support the community by creating sustainable enterprises or social enterprises. Um, for example, truly sustainable tourism, meaning carrying capacity is respected. It's really responsible use of the areas, and setting aside places that you really can't visit. Like you zone your activities basically. So that's one of the key ways to sustain it. Pero we've seen in the pandemic, kapatid, kung super dependent din tayo sa ganong sistema, it could also be a challenge at this time. Kasi kung wala kang bisita, paano mo naman masustain yung trabaho ng mga locals to protect the sanctuary? Di ba?
Mhm.
So, sinasabi ko kaninang community, there's also a greater community that we can depend on. And during the pandemic, that really helped us a lot in the Philippines. I would say thank you to everyone who supported the Philippine Island. Different programs like fund, our future fund, and also donating and booking stays in advance so that there's just steady flow of resources so that we can keep guardians and the deputized fish wardens protecting the sanctuary. But there's still a lot to do. Um, Number one, with that community, of course, it's we need the local government to be a true partner for conservation. I don't think any NGO would succeed if there is no, in my experience, if there is no collaboration with local leaders. Ang hirap.
Yeah, there are so many challenges, and I think with the experience you have and with the long engagement with your organization and communities, I think you learned a lot from those. And how can our listeners and our followers contact Danhugan Island, which is being, of course, conserved by the Philippine Reef and Rainforest Conservation Foundation Incorporated? How can they contact you? Do you have a Facebook page or contact details or website?
We use social media a lot, so Facebook and Instagram at the Nugan Island. You can see that on my screen name. The Nugan Island is not. We don't use it just only to post pictures of the island, but we use it as an educational platform as well. So we do have activities there here and there. Um, for example, Wild Guess. It's this series of posts where our followers can discover species by guessing, based on maybe a close-up picture or a picture that's very, hindi mo makikita yung hayop, and then when you reveal it, we talk about the species, and also we talk about issues that a small island like faces and how it's relevant to our communities. So again, you can contact us and you can follow us at the Nugan Island. If you'd like to visit one day, not yet right now, it's not possible, but that's the idea. That's in like a decade, places like the Nugan Island should still be there. They are our living museums, our archive of the past, and what our future should look like if we do respect the wild and we let them do.
Wow, wow. Thank you so much, kapatid Dave. Titibay ng dibdib, ano? And sa iyong advocacies and campaigns, mayroon kang mga pinaniniwalaang prinsipyo personally that makes you, these principles make you go on and on. May prinsipyo kang tinatayuan, ipinaglalaban. We wish to know more about those, your everyday mantra dito sa hashtag Earthliners. So, let's be personal because our personal lives are actually again connected sa ating mga pinaggagawa at kung paano natin maintain ating mental health, emotional health, for example. What's your everyday mantra, kapatid? Na pag sinabi mo, ayoko na. Pero Dave, okay lang. Kaya mo yan. Ano yung pinaniniwalaan mo araw-araw?
It's a mantra from my teacher. He's a Vietnamese Buddhist monk. The mantra says, no mud, no lotus. So, walang putik, wala ding lotus flower. That's what it means. So, when in turmoil and suffering, that mantra is very helpful to me. Kasi na-remind ko na kahit sa anong pagsubok, you can blossom. I know it might sound cliche, but I really find it beautiful. And it's a calligraphy. Actually, sinulat niya yan in English. His name is Thich Nhat Hanh. He's the founder of Plum Village, and it's my spiritual tradition that I follow is the practice of mindfulness, and I'm still trying to practice the best that I can. But without it, it's going to be hard to continue to work at it.
No muds, no lotus. If you see a lotus kasi ano siya eh, very symbolic siya sa Oriental philosophy, sa Oriental culture. Would you say that mud is a negative thing or a positive thing? There's water, murky. Sometimes sinasabi nilang kadiri, but in the mud, there you go. You have lotus, and it blooms.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Is the mud the negative thing? Is the lotus the positive thing? That's in the tradition. We talk about that as dualistic views. So dualistic meaning it's either or. It's black or white. It's good or bad. What we're practicing when we practice interconnectedness or reflecting on the interconnectedness of the earth, for example, which is aligned to what we call in our practice interbeing. Uh, that the mud and the lotus are they're neither opposites. You know, they're part of each other. There because the lotus is there, and the lotus is there because the mud is there. That it's a philosophy. When that arises, this arises. So it's interdependence of the mud and the lotus. So you see them as they are. So the mud is no longer, and that's hopefully, and of course I'm saying this from a very intellectual perspective, but in practice it's difficult because syempre kung nasa putik ka, diba, ang sama ng feeling or ang dumi, di ba? Parang, ayoko nito, ganyan. So, madali lang sabihin that, oh, I need to appreciate the mud because the mud creates a space for the logos. But then if we get stuck to those dualistic views, then we're always going to be unhappy and we're always going to be angry. But if we have, hopefully, we practice or nurture that wisdom that things are interdependent and we can appreciate how connected it also might help us in our conflicts, whether it's personal or social conflicts. Hindi tayo hindi tayo nagiging dualistic na parang, okay, ano ka ba, dilawan ka ba, DPS ka ba? So, it's
Hmm.
not like that. The reality is we are people and we're being pulled and we're in this web being pulled in different directions.
Wow. There are times that it's too hot. Nag-evaporate yung water sa mud. And then the lotus ay nanganganib na mag-wither. So there are times in your life, for example, na you feel that way. What makes you move on? What motivates you to continue what you do for, for Nanay Earth, for example, for Danhugan Island, for our planet? Sometimes bored ka na, burned out ka na. What motivates you to go on?
It might sound cliche, but I'm really speaking from the heart. I think it's the sense of meaning. I mean, the meaning of what you're doing. So I believe na um, I won't be able to see. This might be a very pessimistic view, but maybe a realistic view. Hindi ko sure na makikita ko na may changes that I seek in this world. I might not be able to reverse climate change in my lifetime. I may not be able to, save a certain species from extinction. I'm being realistic. I might not see that in my lifetime, but will that stop me from doing what I'm doing now? I think what we're doing in the present is what gives us meaning, and whether or not we're gonna reach the destination, if we kung nagpatuloy tayo sa journey na yan and we have meaning and purpose, kahit na hindi natin makita yung destination, basta we were on the track, I think that
Mhm.
that's all worth it. So, kung may time na parang tuyo na or very burned out, I don't. It's just easy for me to describe, but I'm also going through a lot related to this. Kapatid, hindi naman ibig sabihin that I can handle this well. Um, I seek therapy. I seek counseling as well and talk to friends. I also look at the somatic effects sa body ko, like my anxiety is this caused by some somatic. So I do follow the advice of medical professionals.
Mhm.
I do understand the need for certain medications, so I will be open about that. Um, I do believe that mental health is it's not basically about illnesses, but it's also like the status of our mind. So I do believe that we need to seek out help if we need. This parent talk is actually part of my self care routine to be able to talk, have some
Yeah, with what we do, with the stress we have, with the pressure, that's a very big challenge that is needed to be addressed in the civil society and the NGOs, and we hope that the civil society, the NGOs would be, would work together to help each other when it comes to those kinds of issues and concerns. But on top of your motivation, I know that you have your peers. We know that we have our certain groups and peers in the confidant, for example. Uh, who inspires you, or what inspires you?
Interesting question. While they're in this room with me tonight, they're my team. Part of this team. We've been through a lot, definitely. But they inspire me. I mean, that's a bit cliche, pero syempre, totoo yun. Kasi dami pinagdaanan, nating lahat. And we share the house. We try to talk to each other and have deep conversations about life because that will carry us through. So these are my sources of inspiration. But if you ask me in terms of political leadership, I think it's Alessandria Ocasio-Cortez. I follow her work. She's just
Mhm.
amazing. I'm not 100% like agreeing all the time with what she says. I'm very careful about that. Na parang hindi ako blind follower, but I'm very interested in the policies that she and her the bloc of social democrats. Tama ba? Democratic socialist democrats. Yeah. Yeah. So that's my. So I find them really inspiring.
Yeah, and I think another question for this segment now. Uh, where are endangered species? The conservation movement, the environmental defenders, sabi nga natin, uh, we're being threatened, some are being killed, some are burned out, some are being red tagged, etc., etc. But the thing is, this passion that we have, almost all of us will level off that this is not really a selfish job. It's really, even if we go sa vacation halimbawa, hindi natin mahihiwalay yung ating trabaho para sa planeta, kahit na nakaupo lang tayo, kahit sa lahat. Yun nga, nasa-stress tayo minsan dahil gusto mong manahimik pero hindi mo kayang manahimik. What is your message doon sa mga gustong sumali sa conservation movement? Na sasabihin natin, hindi naman talaga mahirap because it's a natural sa tao na dapat i-conserve natin yung ating kalikasan at ang ating kapaligiran. But this is challenging. This is challenging. I won't say that this is a job, but for us, this is a responsibility. It's a moral responsibility. What's your message to the young people, uh, if they wish, to choose to join the conservation movement? What's your
Ano,
advice?
ano advice natin? I'm asking my colleagues here. Iniisip ko kasi kung paano din ako nagsimula. It was also experiencing programs. I was part of a junior zookeeper workshop with the Negros Forest Ecological Foundation. So I learned about endemic endangered species and captive breeding, and that really changed me when I was very young. So I think we will never, if you wanna be a part of the conservation movement, I think it's very important to be
Mhm.
inspired by experiences. That will really, really push us to do something. It can be fun also. Learn free diving, or if
Mhm.
you're interested in birds, go birding. or learning about
Mhm.
birds, right? Or if you like to trek and hike, learn about leave no trace or responsible mountaineering, and ensuring that you're not destroying the very places that we seek to enjoy. So we can incorporate them into our interests. I think if you're starting to incorporate them into your interests, especially with experiences that you would like to have and experiences that give you meaning. Kasi 'di ba, ano naman ang importante sa mundo? Is it material possessions, or is it the experience that really marks leaves a mark in our existence, in our meaning in life?
Mhm. Okay, kapatid, one word, one answer or description. Okay. Dolomite,
Fake
shark,
friend,
mhm, starfish,
untouchable.
mhm, antiporda,
What? Say that again.
antiporda,
Who is he? Wow, joke lang.
okay, Robredo,
Oh,
Donald Trump,
I cannot say the word on online. Starts with an starts with an A.
Biden,
Interesting.
China,
Oh, wait.
mahirap.
Wait.
Okay,
Xiao Xin ah. 我们要小心.
go.
That's
All right.
我们要小心啊，小心.
Sila yun, nakakaintindihan nila yun.
It means you need to be careful.
Yes, you need to be careful. Well, last would be um the person who is not to be named.
We were just talking about him. Oh my gosh. Oh my god. My ex. Hindi, not my ex. Hindi.
Okay.
Hindi. Wait, reflective
Reflective. Okay.
of our society, of how are we as a people. I don't wanna be dualistic and say that I pit one against the other. I'm sorry if I have that impression, pero but we need to have leaders who would need to unite us, and that's why I say to Roberto hope, because the way she handles um, situations, she doesn't. It's not true that she's creating rifts, she's trying to do something so that we can be united. But it's so hard and we're so divided. So I don't know. Yeah, more than one word. Yun.
Last word. Greta.
Hmm. Mm, symbol
Simple.
or symbolic.
Well, thank you, Kuya Dave. And sometimes dahil sa dinami-daming ginagawa, we also have some days off. We stop, reflect, and 3, 2, 1, pause and post. But you know what? We got you dito sa hashtag EarthGlams. Sige. Ito, EarthGlams ito.
Masaya pa kaya.
Ninakaw namin yung mga pictures mo doon sa
What?
Facebook. Kasi nasa public domain naman. Pero simple lang naman to. Hindi naman to ano censored. So let's have the first photo of kapatid na Dave. And tell us something about this photo. This controversial photo. I don't know bakit ito naging controversial.
Hindi naman
Hindi
controversial
siya
yan.
controversial di ba? Pero yung issue niyan controversial. So, well, this is a very beautiful photo. Tell us something about this.
Honestly, hindi na ako masyado nagsa-scuba dive. Nabibigyan na ako ng tanks at saka masyadong matrabaho mag-scuba dive. So,
Uh,
I'm scuba diving. So, I'd rather free dive or just go. I mean, I'm not saying that I can really go deep and go very long, especially with a practice. Pero parang mas free yung feeling. But this is something that a lot of, not, if I need to say that you and me or people who can dive are privileged.
mhm.
We are privileged to be able to experience this. So this is not something that a lot of people would immediately have an experience of. To be able to breathe underwater with the the apparatus for 45 minutes. You know,
Wow.
so this is something that we need to treasure, but use it. If we have the ability and the privilege to be able to do this, we need to do something for that very environment that we witnessed now.
Blue, green, many colors, almost every color makikita mo sa under the sea. Very beautiful. Let's go to the next photo.
Oh my gosh, meron pa.
My next photo pa eh. Pero tignan natin and tell us something again about this one. You do scuba diving and some people, they fear to go to go scuba diving. The fin.
Paa ko lang yung nakikita.
Corals. Tell us something. This is very interesting. Very symbolic. Where is this?
This is above a table coral colony named Her Majesty. Her Majesty passed away months ago because of coral bleaching. She died, and we were very, very saddened by it. So this was an opportunity for me to be in the presence of a being that's older than me.
Mm, wow.
Nakikita mo ba si Her Majesty? Yun yung coral, yung table coral.
Yes.
Tapos I was freediving above it. So this is kind of like, yeah, yung pinaganon natin. Pero hindi siyempre nakahapak yan na malayo pa yan.
Mm-mm. And this really, this photo sends very, very striking message for everyone. Wow. Thank you. Yes?
Pero si Her Majesty bleached because of warming seas. Hindi na naka-recover at it's already covered with algae, but hopefully it will become a substrate for new colonies to grow on. Hopefully.
Yeah, before we go to the next segment, Kuya Dave Kapatid, tell our audience, kasi meron pa silang dilemma eh. Are corals, are they plants, dead, a rock, or what? What are corals?
May biologist ako kasama dito. uh, Corals are animals. They are in the same phylum as jellyfish. So they do have tentacles. But they grow in colonies and they excrete calcium carbonate, right? For their skeleton. So sometimes we often see, especially for hard coral, you see the polyps retracted in daytime and you can see the skeleton. So that's why it's usually referred, some people call it a rock or sa Bisaya, tinatawag siyang bato, di ba? But actually may, siya, yung flesh niya is, there's an animal in there. But also in the cells of the animals, there is algae. So these are the plant components of the coral colony. There's zooxanthellae or algae that give the coral its color. And they also they photosynthesize and provide food for the corals. Is that a good description? So it's a mixture. I mean, corals are animals, but they do have a rock component and a plant component. I guess they're part of their existence. And then when seas are very warm, algae, the plant cells, or sorry, the organisms that live on the coral's flesh, they get expelled by the coral
Mm.
polyp in warming seas. So that's why you see them white, and eventually they will die of starvation. And that's when the corals bleach, and then you only find the skeletons and they die. That means the corals just there's no polyps inside anymore. It's just a skeleton.
Mm. Thank you for that information at sana niliwanagan yung ating mga kapatid, mga kapuso at mga karugtong. Okay, Dave, thank you. At syempre, marami tayong natututunan at dapat pagkilusan. Our hopes and dreams need action. At sa mga kabataan dyan, hey, hindi ka na ang kinabukasan. Dahil ikaw na ang ngayon na humuhubog sa iyong hinaharap. Tulad ni Kuya Dave. At para sa iyo, sa iyong family, friends, and communities at sa buong ecosystem. At mayroon po tayong bagong segment ngayon for our season 2, no? Isang mabilisang take sa mga trending at mahalagang usapin sa linggong ito. Kasama natin si John Leo C. Algo ng Living Lautapo si Philippines at syempre, miyembro ng Interim Secretary ng Action Klima Pilipinas, aka nandito po si JL dito sa hashtag Quick Trends.
Okay. So, magandang gabi Pilipinas at lahat ng nakikinig sa buong mundo. Ito po si JL Algo. And baka po sa linggong ito na siguro hindi natin pag-usapan yung medyo mga underreported na mga trends. I think it's important for us to discuss for this week's Quick Trends the elephant in the room, so to speak. At syempre, ang ating dapat pag-usap, ang issue na ito no, ay tungkol sa ating pagresponde sa mga nakalipas na mga bagyo na tumama sa ating bansa. Remember, in the last 3 weeks alone, we have experienced 5 tropical cyclones. At kabilang po dito ay ang naitalang pinakamalakas na bagyo sa kabuuan ng 2020, ang bagyong Rolly. At kasama na rin dito ang isang bagyo na nagpaalala sa mga residente ng Metro Manila ng hindi ka nais-nais na mga karanasan 11 taon ang nakalilipas. At syempre ito po ay yung epekto ng bagyong Ulysses na naranasan ng maraming Pilipino, hindi lamang sa Metro Manila, pati na rin sa ibang bahagi ng Luzon at pati Visayas at Mindanao na rin. At ito po ay isang malinaw na senyales na meron tayong sigurong kailangang i-improve pagdating sa ating climate and disaster governance. Ayan. At syempre, sa mga nakakang araw ay mukhang ang nagiging focus po ng mga balita ay patungkol sa mga komento, mga statement ng mga ilang opisyales ng ating pamahalaan pagdating sa accountability, pagdating sa may ginawa ba talaga itong opisyal ng gobyerno na ito pagdating sa panahon ng krisis o nagtutulog-tulugan lang. Ang sagot naman ng opisyal na yun sa isa pang opisyal, bakit namumulitika ka sa ganitong panahon na dapat tayo lahat ay magkaisa. So baka nagbabatuan lang sila ng mga pamilyar na statement na narinig na natin ilang bagyo na ang dumaan sa atin, parang paulit-ulit lang yung nangyayari. Pero ang hindi po dapat mawala pagdating sa usapin ng pagbabago ng klima sa Pilipinas ay ang konsepto ng climate justice, yung hustisyang pangklima. Ayan. So ano nga po ba ang climate justice? Basically, ang tradisyonal na pagtingin sa krisis na pangklima o climate crisis ay nakafocus sa isang environmental perspective, sa isang scientific perspective. And of course, as a science person myself, I'm not saying that we should not look at that issue in those perspectives because at the end of the day, climate change is an issue that a large part, which a huge chunk of it is can only be really explained by science, kumbaga. Pero siguro dapat palawakin pa natin ang ating perspektibo pagdating sa usapin ng climate change at dito papasok ang lens ng human rights, ang lens ng poverty, inequality, peace and order. At dito po sa perspektibong ito, nakapalibot ang konsepto ng climate justice. Dahil ilang bagyo na pong dumadaan sa ating bansa, ilang tagtuyot na ang dumaan sa ating bansa. At marami pang epekto ng pagbabago ng klima ang dadaan sa ating bansa. And each and every single time, ang laging pinakatinatamaan ng mga epekto ng mga naturang extreme weather event, na mga slow onset event, ay ang ating mga kababayan na marginalized, those who belong in the poorest sectors. And we should always remember, and I'm gonna read this straight off of our Philippine Constitution, no, para di masabihan nag-fake news ako, that every single time that a disaster, a climate-related disaster happens in our country, the human rights of the marginalized, the poorest sectors, and everybody else who has been the most affected by these typhoons, droughts, among others, it's their human rights that are always violated, especially the right of the people to a balanced and healthful ecology in accord with the rhythm and harmony of nature. Still one of the most beautiful lines I've ever read in anything ever. And that's perhaps one of the most important rights pagdating sa usapin ng climate justice. Ngayon, paano ba natin makakamit ang climate justice sa ating bansa? Well, sa ganitong perspektibo ay dapat nating tignan ang dalawang aspeto ng pag-aksyon laban sa climate change. Una, syempre yung adaptation. So, tumitindi ang mga bagyo at marami pang epekto ng pagbabago ng klima na nakaka-apekto sa tinatawag nating risk ng mga komunidad pagdating ng mga potential na sakuna o yung mga hazard. Ayan. So, dapat ang gagawin natin ay iangkop ang ating paraan ng pamumuhay sa mga nagbabagong kondisyon sa ating kapaligiran. At hindi lang po yun. Hindi lang dapat tayo nakikiangkop o nag-a-adapt. Dapat binabawasan din natin ang nakaambang risk o panganib. So, siguro dapat magtanim tayo ng mga puno. Dapat siguro hindi tayo magputol ng mga puno. Hindi tayo dapat mag-abala ng mga biodiversity na nakapaligid sa ating kapaligiran. Hindi dapat natin lagyan ng basura ang katabing ilog, katabing sapa, para pagdating ng mga malalakas na bagyo, hindi agad babahain ang inyong lugar. Ito po ang ilan sa mga ehemplo ng adaptation laban sa climate change. Pero that's only 50% of the equation. If we want to achieve climate justice, dapat pati mitigation o pagbabawas ng greenhouse gases na ibinubuga sa ating atmosfera, karagatan at iba pang bahagi ng ating kapaligiran, we should also implement that as well. Kaya mahalaga po ang pag-transition natin. Urgent but just transition. Since climate justice, dapat just din ang transition from coal and other fossil fuels to renewable energy. Sa mga nakakang quick trend na segment natin ay naibalita na po natin na nagkaroon ng moratorium ang Department of Energy na wala na pong bagong coal-fired power plant na pwede itayo sa ating bansa. And in the context of climate justice, nagkakaroon ng mas mahalagang implikasyon ang naturang moratorium na ito. Especially if we want to alleviate our fellow Filipinos out of poverty, out of injustices, inequalities, at syempre, para maiwasan din na ang loss and damage. At syempre, zero casualties. That's always the priority for any disaster-related issue. So, dapat hindi lang po adaptation ang ating focus, pati na rin mitigation. Only by doing adaptation and mitigation can we really achieve climate justice. At syempre, hindi po dapat pamumulitika ang inintindi ng ating mga opisyalis ng pamahalaan, kundi dapat pamamahala. Because if we prioritize politics over governance, we will never achieve climate justice. And only by achieving climate justice can we really achieve the right type of resilience that our country desperately needs. Kaya pumahalaga ang usapin ng climate justice pagdating sa Pilipinas. Ito po si JL Algo, nagsasabing, when it comes to the truth, don't fake, don't deny, always recognize. Back to you, Sir Rodne.
Thank you, JL. So don't forget, mga kapatid, mga kapuso at karugtong, #climate justice. So, kaya Dave, nandito si JL. I think you know JL already. And nagpapasalamat tayo sa pag-join mo sa araw na ito. Well, sa gabing ito. At syempre, before we end, we would like to invite our friends and followers to also watch and join the conversation sa lahat ng mga araw na merong shows ang Quarantalk Media. So these are our line of shows, our schedule for the whole week. Kuya Dave, can you help me tell our followers what's in for Monday?
Monday at 9 p.m., we have Quarantalk.
Yes, we have Quarantalk with, of course, Aya and Jules. JL, what's in for Tuesday?
Sa Martes po, 9 p.m., the main agenda.
Yeah, yun po main agenda with Ate May Nalandure de Runya. And Wednesday, we have 7 p.m. Kilos Kabataan, of course, with Jules. 9 p.m. Nandito ba? Hashtag QT Earth. What's in for Thursday, Kuya Dave?
For Thursday, we have 9 p.m. Throwback Kasaysayan.
And that's with Professor Gio Giyang. And 10:30, do we have what we have?
May Inuman with Thais and Rafi.
Yes, Thais, Estrada, and Rafi Magno. And JL, 9 p.m. of Friday.
SDG, online tambayan.
That's Sustainable Development Goals for 2030 Youth Force on Saturday. Every Saturday at 9 p.m. Radio Comelec. Go out and vote. That's your right by the year 2022. And Sunday, of course, wala tayo. Pero meron po tayong misa. Misa po every Sunday live. And of course, tune in sa Quarantalk Media powered by IKOT.PH. At syempre, we have JL, we have Kia Dave, and dito sa hashtag QT Earth, everything matters dahil ang lahat ay magkaugnay, hindi magkakahiwalay dahil ang ating buhay, kalikasan ang pinagmulan at pinagkukunan ng ating kabuhayan. Tayo at ang kapaligiran ay iisa, tayo ay kalikasan. Dito sa Quarantalk Media, we empower the Filipino, we inspire action, and we serve the people. But before that, let's remember, Laudato Si number 49, sabi ni Pope Francis, today, however, we have to realize that a true ecological approach always becomes a social approach. It must integrate questions of justice in debates on the environment so as to hear both the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. This portion is brought to you by Living Laudato Si Philippines. At syempre, ako po ang inyong lingkod at kaugnay, face-to-face sa social media, Kalikasan 101. You may visit my website, www.rodgalicha.com at ang www.livinglaudatasi.org.ph. Kasama, of course, ang Action Klima Pilipinas at ang Climate Action for Sustainability Initiative. And JL, paano namin kayo makokontakt, JL?
I work with Sir Rodney, so, basically those same things. But in terms of personal social media, Facebook, it's JLC Algo. Instagram, I think it's on private, so I'm not going to say that anymore. But Twitter is Sir John of Algo.
Yes. And of course, Kuya Dave, kapatid, paano makontak ang iyong social media, and of course, Danhugan Island?
It's on my screen name at dave.albao and at Danhugan Island. Thank you, kapatid.
Wow, and thank you for that. At mga kapatid, mga karugtong at mga kapusod, again, tayo at ang kapaligiran ay iisa, tayo ay kalikasan. Dahil dito sa hashtag QT Earth, hashtag
We are nature.
Maraming salamat. See you on Wednesday.
Bye.